Welcome back to the PI Files, where we dig into real cases, real people, and the role of private investigators in uncovering the truth. I'm your host, Eric Peterson. I'm a licensed private investigator here in California. We are recording at a legendary spot, Malarkey's Speakeasy, right here in Newport Beach. Today's guest is a powerhouse of the Orange County hospitality scene, Morovic, CEO of Lounge Group, which has 16 restaurants and bars, from the high-end The Country Club in Costa Mesa to the old-school Blackies by the Sea in Newport Beach. His parents immigrated from Croatia with a dream of a better life, and he turned that foundation into one of the most influential hospitality empires in Southern California. We're going behind the scenes, the concepts, the grind, behind the glamour, and what it really takes to build bars and restaurants that become local icons. Let's get into Mario's story, the hustle, the heart, and the speakeasy secrets hidden right beneath us. Well, first of all, welcome and thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
I wanted to start at the beginning. What's the story of the Morovic family coming into the U.S. from Croatia?
Well, my mother and father immigrated here from Croatia back in the 1960s. Me and my brother were born in Los Angeles. My parents met and got married in Cleveland, Ohio. That's where my sister was born. You know, my father came here from a very poor Croatian family. He was orphaned to the Catholic Church at the age of 11. And he had very basic education, probably had the equivalent of a sixth grade education. He ended up, at the age of 18, you were required to join the army in Yugoslavia, which is now they broke up into multiple countries, one of which is Croatia. But at the time, he joined the Yugoslavian army and he went AWOL. He escaped, ended up walking 3 days from Croatia to Italy, and then from Italy somehow made his way through Paris into Germany and got a job there as a refugee. Worked there for a few years and walked into the U.S. Embassy, filled out the paperwork, and next thing you know, he's on a flight to New York City and ended up in Cleveland, Ohio, where he met my mother. He was a cabinet maker by trade. At some point, he went to Los Angeles to visit some friends, and it was January, and my mom said Cleveland, Ohio was 3 feet of snow and freezing, and he came back from visiting his friends in Los Angeles and said, I found the promised land. It's 75 degrees in January, they're barbecuing, we're packing up everything and selling. And he ended up moving the entire family to Los Angeles within 6 months.
Wow. And then what did he do? What industry did he get into at that time?
At that time, my mother was a maid. My brother was born shortly after, and I was right after him. The three of us are all about between 14 and 18 months apart. So imagine you had a family of 5 with 3 kids. My mother was a maid. She worked at nighttime cleaning office buildings in Los Angeles. My father worked in the daytime for a union cabinet shop called the Columbia Show House. So my father was a cabinet maker, my mother was a maid, and they worked 24-hour shifts. One of them would watch the kids in the daytime, the other one would watch the kids at nighttime, and my father saved up, whatever he could at the time, and took and risked everything that he had and partnered up with a friend of his and opened up a bar in Anaheim, California called the Wild Goose Tavern in the 1970s.
And where were you guys living at the time, Matt?
Well, we were living in Los Angeles, and they moved. They moved to Placentia, and he moved the family into a 2-bedroom apartment. I was in preschool. My brother and sister were kindergarten and first grade, and they ran this little neighborhood tavern called the Wild Goose up at Kramer Boulevard in Anaheim. And they risked everything. If one thing would have gone wrong, they had no support system. There was no one there to fall back on. So they just were motivated by the willingness to want to work hard, and the motivator was fear. Failure is not an option.
And then fast forward, you got a place called Wild Goose.
Yeah, my partner Andrew Gabriel and I opened up a business in Costa Mesa called the Wild Goose Tavern in 2012. My father had his in the 1970s.
Wow.
So we always liked the name. And what's funny is there's the Wild Goose boat in Newport Beach owned by John Wayne, and a lot of the locals here feel that we did a tribute to John Wayne's boat, but really it was a tribute to my father's first restaurant in Anaheim.
Now, if you go on the Wild, I mean, it's got that John Wayne-esque cowboy feel. Yeah. It's a cool place. What values did your parents instill in you that show up in your businesses today?
The one thing that my father always taught me was always be the hardest working guy out there. If you a working man's never going to go broke. We're talking about a person that came to America with limited education, with no English at the time, and was just willing to work hard and work nonstop and live a very modest lifestyle. And I feel like the biggest values that he instilled in us was work hard, work smart, and live within your means.
So what got you to where you're at now? What was your journey?
Well, what was interesting about my family is because they never had the opportunity to have a formal education, because growing up as a pretty much a peasant villager in the hills of Croatia, you weren't allowed to go to school. And so my father's formal education was probably a sixth grade equivalent in the orphanage. And he always wished he was able to get an education, and he wasn't. So his biggest dream for his kids was for us to go to college. And he always said that if you go to school, I'll pay for it. And I took him up on it, and he always promoted education in the family. And I ended up getting my undergraduate degree from USC. I mastered in entrepreneurship, and then I went back and I got my MBA from USC, and I got a degree in finance and marketing. Growing up in the restaurant and bar industry, I always watched my parents work really hard, and I vowed that I'd never do it because it was nonstop, day and night. My mother cooked in the kitchen. My father would actually clean the bars every morning because he didn't want to spend the money on a janitor. So they did everything. They managed it, they worked, they did the cleaning. And so I told myself, this is one thing that I'm never going to do when I have an opportunity to start my own business. I went to work in Silicon Valley. I went to work for Silicon Valley Bank and Silicon Valley Bank, SVB, if you remember recently. They were the bank that went under, that caused the massive closures of all these mid-tier banks, the bank that I worked at.
Wow.
And I worked there for a couple of years. Didn't see daylight. I went to work in the morning before the sun went up. I came home after the sun went down. And then an old saying rang true. You don't know what you have until it's gone. And I actually missed the hospitality industry.
So when did it go? So what was the first hospitality job you had? And then you just left was that up north?
Yeah, so I was living in the Bay Area and wasn't really happy in the banking industry, and I just was not fulfilled, and I missed that human interaction like we're having right now. I missed just now we were outside in the Malarkey's Irish pub in the front, and we're joking around with all the old timers that are having breakfast in the mornings, and I just missed that human interaction that I grew up with in my parents' Wild Goose Tavern, like a little country bar. And I was a little boy running around there, and I always, thought as a kid, I'll never do this. But when you didn't have it, I realized that I missed it. So I quit my job after thinking about it for, quite a few months. My family was very upset. They said, we didn't send you to college to own a bar. And I told them my new goal in life was actually to be in the hospitality industry. I moved back home to OC in 2002. I went to work in the mortgage industry. And as you remember, that was a pretty hot time to do residential mortgages. I worked in that for about 2 years. And keep in mind, I lived at home with my parents at the time, which these days it's kind of cool to live at home with your parents. But at that time, it was kind of embarrassing. So I lived at home to save as much money as possible. I worked in the mortgage industry. I saved up every penny that I had. And in 2004, I purchased the District Lounge in Old Town Orange. And then I also purchased a Landmark Steakhouse in Corona del Mar, which at that time was Carmelo's, and the District Lounge was Los Besitos. And I purchased two businesses in 1 year, remodeled them, and I opened them up. And the mortgage industry was very lucrative, so I was able to save up enough money to open up both those restaurants at the same time.
And they're both opposite types of bar restaurants. The District is old, like Chapman, crowd, old school, and then Landmark became like a hot spot, right? So you'd have athletes going through there at Corona del Mar and stuff like that, right? It was pretty hot spot for...
Well, it was interesting, right? So we bought them both right around the same time, but because I was remodeling them both at the same time, I was able to buy them and I was able to remodel one of them, but was not able to afford the remodel on the other one. So we opened up the District Lounge first in December of 2004. And the District Lounge is my hometown. I grew up in the city of Orange. I went to Holy Family Elementary down the street. So I felt very comfortable there. And at this time, I had moved out of my parents' house and moved to Newport Beach. So then the Landmark Steakhouse was down the street from the new place where I was living. So I had this really interesting connection where I just opened up the District Lounge, which is my hometown, and I was about to open up Landmark, which is my new hometown. The new place where I was going to live and create some new relationships. And the District Lounge was very successful from day one. And as I was doing the remodel at Landmark, every dollar I made at the District Lounge would just go right into the construction fund to open up the Landmark. And so now look at this. We just bought the two businesses, and I just moved into a house that I just purchased in Corona Del Mar. I did a refinance on the house to pull out some money. And if one thing would have gone wrong, I would have lost the District Lounge, Landmark, and my house simultaneously. If one thing would have gone wrong with either one of those businesses, I would have lost everything.
And at this point, you're still in the mortgage industry a little bit, or no?
No, at this point, I just got out of it.
Got it.
At that time, I felt it was a little bit of a bubble, but I think it was 4 years too soon because it kind of felt a little frothy. And so I got out of the industry in late 2004. And meanwhile, the industry continued to flourish until late 2008. So for about 4 years, everyone told me how stupid I was to leave the mortgage industry. But then when the bubble popped, everyone said I was so smart. I just did it 4 years too soon.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously worked out, hard work. And when you look at those types of places, you know, when you look at like a Blackie's versus how Landmark was, or District versus, is it, what makes more money? Is it that consistency, or that, boom, it's going to be a hotspot on a weekend?
Well, see, Landmark was really cool because that was, I'd say my biggest surprise with opening up Landmark was not knowing how successful it was actually going to be. The hardest part of my job at Landmark was actually not letting people in, because we'd have a line down the street between like 400 and 600 people deep every single weekend, Thursday through Saturday. And literally just turning people away was a full-time job in itself because we were so successful. And the level of the clientele there were, you know, it was like movie stars. Paris Hilton was coming in, professional athletes, you know, Yankees, Angels. I mean, anytime we had a popular team playing the Angels, everybody ended up at Landmark. And so it was a very interesting time. Never expected that. And, you know, they're both successful in their own ways. But it was very interesting to see that progression, the learning experience of what we went through there, and the learning experience of what we did right. But more importantly, what we did wrong was the building blocks for everything we did after that.
Was there any mistake that almost crushed it? I know you said that, hey, it was hit or miss during that time, but anything that you could let the audience know who was getting into this that maybe you did that I could have done this differently?
You know, the one thing that I, aside from my father, who was a great mentor, he always ran smaller restaurant pubs. I never really made an effort to get a really strong mentor. So I kind of did everything on my own. So a lot of the learning curves that I went through were probably more severe than they would have been if I had a good mentor who could have maybe guided me through it a little smoother and a little easier. We went from running a business to building an organization. And I figured out, you know, the systems on my own, which, you know, ended up working out great. But at the time, it was just nonstop hours. I worked 18 hours a day nonstop. It was, you know, we opened up in the mornings. We worked till 3 o'clock in the morning. We went home, and my sleep schedule really, it was like regimented to where I'd have to go home and take a nap in the middle of the day with the blinds down so I can stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning and continue to work. So it was a lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifice, but at the, you know, when it was all said and done, we were successful because of it.
I remember seeing your dad, I think it was like maybe 11 o'clock at night in front of this stack, long time ago, breaking up concrete. Yeah. I was like, and he was no spring chicken, and talk about work ethic and determination. It's amazing. And then when did you decide you just kept going? Like, because some people would just be happy with one, and some people are, and they're successful, but then you took it to another level.
Well, my plan was hopefully to one day own 3 locations. That was my plan. It was the District Lounge, Landmark, and one more. And then we were successful, and, you know, we treated people well, and we built really good relationships. And it seemed like for a while there, every single year, we opened up a new establishment, and we did that almost every single year for about 10 years straight. And we just kept growing and growing, and we had the energy, and we were willing to work hard. And, you know, my father was a great support system, because I'd always turn to my dad and say, "Dad, what do you think?" He said, "Go for it, son. If you need any help, I'll help you." And when we built the District Lounge, my father and I remodeled the entire business in a matter of about 100 days. And we worked every single day, 100 days straight, with not one day off, with manual laborers and contractors. And I was physically underground. My father was teaching me how to do construction for the first time. I was laying sewer pipe, and it was quite a bit of work. And just being there with him side by side and learning the construction side of things, I actually never thought how having that experience was going to actually help me in the future, because now I'm a real estate developer also. And the development skills that I got were mostly from the experience that my father gave me and the education.
Speaking of education, when you look at the degrees, because you went to a great school, obviously, so congrats on that. Those degrees that you got, is any of that, how applicable is it to, because you're mentioning work ethic, 18-hour days. Was there anything that you applied from those degrees?
What's interesting about college is you get out of it what you put into it. A lot of people now, they go to school because it's a great way to spend between 4 and 5 years of your time and, have a lot of fun. When I went to school, I went to class every single day trying to, literally, what can I get out of this to make me a better person? And, because my parents never had the chance to have the formal education, I grew up with my family constantly telling me, one day you could lose everything, whether it's the government or society, the economy, you can lose it all. The one thing they can't take away from you is like the knowledge that you acquired throughout the years. And so when I went to school, it wasn't really an opportunity to have fun and party. I literally took classes that I thought I would learn from. I took classes from teachers that I thought were the best teachers to be able to instill knowledge. And yeah, I take a lot of things from undergrad and grad school into my daily life. Business development, organizational behavior, there's so many economics, finance, all those basic studies that I took and actually use every single day.
Did you commute to USC or were you staying up there?
A little bit of both. I commuted for a few months until I found an apartment, and then I moved into a kind of room for rent above a restaurant called the 29th Street Cafe, and it was, I think, a 6-bedroom apartment over a restaurant bar. At that time, it was like a CD changer, and they had the 5 CDs on rotation every single night, and I can hear it through my floorboards all night long. Jane's Addiction, Beastie Boys, etc. And you know what? It just felt normal. And we had like 5 roommates with one bathroom that we all shared, and we lived there for a couple of years, and it was great.
Moving on to what you've created, every lounge group concept, it seems totally different. You can't just, it's not like, it's not a franchise chain. What's your process for creating each location, the vibe, everything?
It's on twofold, right? Because Lounge Group owns many iconic restaurants that have been around for a long time. The Stag Bar is the oldest bar in Orange County. It opened up in 1908. So the idea there was we were able to purchase the building with the business and just improve upon it. We're at Malarkey's Irish Pub. They opened up in 77. So we own some of the most iconic restaurants and bars in the entire county, like probably the entire country. Blackie's by the Sea. Everyone knows Blackie's. Blackie's is the only bar in the country that has a beach named after it. Growing up in the city of Orange, we'd always come to Newport Beach and we go to Blackie's Beach and we see this old man bar there. And we always thought the bar is named after the beach. But in the 1960s, the city decreed that Blackie's Beach, because everybody would see, the only structure they could see from the water was the Blackie's sign. And the surfers would say, meet me in front of Blackie's. And they say, meet me at Blackie's, but they meant the beach. And so then you got the beach ball next door. They opened up in 1969. And we have Muldoon's 1974. So those are the iconic brands that we own. And as far as the brands that we created, what we do is we, unlike a McDonald's, they go around and they try and find a street corner that would be the best fit for their restaurant. We go out and we find great locations that we think would fit a restaurant or bar, and then we reverse engineer what we think the community needs. So when my partner Andrew and I bought the property for the Wild Goose, we weren't looking to open up a Wild Goose. We bought the property and then said, what can we put here? And then we brainstormed back and forth for a matter of months, and we came up with that Wild Goose concept. And you can say the same thing for, Dory Deli, Super Ponga, all the other establishments that we currently created. We intend for all of them to be future legacy, iconic concepts. So we don't try and do things that are trendy. We try and do things that we think the community wants.
Yeah, on 17th Street in Costa Mesa, you can walk from one to the other, and it is completely different playa. Wild Goose, the country club, it's just amazing. I mean, do you have a team of people, or do you recruit people for different concepts?
Well, all the concepts are created by my partner and I, Andrew. And we concept it, we come up with it, we create the brand. And then as far as building them, we either design it on our own, or we'll partner up with the design team to help us work out all the details on it. Wild Goose was pretty much me and Andrew, country club, Playa Mesa. We worked with the Hatch design group, and they're second generation designers, Newport Beach. Their father designed Muldoon's in 1974. So now we're working with their children, and they're designing some of our restaurants and bars. But regardless of what it is, we're very hands-on all the way through.
And what's interesting is some of these you're doing it from the ground up, like the Wild Goose, but then you go to like a Blackie's or a Beach Ball, and you got some old school folks that are wondering, okay, what's he gonna do?
Yeah.
And a lot of them, you're just keeping that original concept, similar to Malarkey's, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to mess it up. You don't want to create a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. If we take over an existing place, like for example, when we took over Malarkey's, this was my hangout spot. This is like my home base when I was younger, and having the opportunity to buy it was like beyond a dream, because this is the bar where I had my first legal drink at, and the bartender who served me that drink is now my minority partner here, Brent Rannick, who's a retired lifeguard. So, Malarkey's was very special to us. When we took it over, there's a fine line between keeping it original and letting it, run down. We had to redo the bathrooms. We had to redo the plumbing. The plumbing didn't work. We had to do a lot of upgrades to the business that are just a natural course of maintaining it. So the locals were scared. They were scared that we were going to change it and turn it into something else, and we didn't. And we literally have the exact same customers here that we did before we bought it. And then we have more on top of that.
Yeah, and then if you look at the outdoor patio that just happened, this room, I mean, what's the origin of this Speakeasy? What made you do this?
Well, we're in the Malarkey Speakeasy in like the back, and this is my old office. And so like where we're sitting used to be like a big desk here, and so this was like the command center for everything that we did. And we had our marketing team in the adjacent room and our finance team, and we really worked behind a bar for 12 years. And then when we built our new offices on 17th Street, we took everyone out of the back of Malarkey's into our new building, and this sat vacant for quite a few years. And then when we did the remodel for the patio, we went to the city, and they authorized us to turn this into a little speakeasy. So it's kind of cool. It's a little private event space for VIPs and friends and family, and it's a cool place to hang out. And if you look at the wall, what's really cool about it is a lot of these photos have a lot of history. We have my parents' wedding photo on the wall.
Oh, wow.
My father's parents. We got a picture of Stag Bar from the 1930s with the spittoon buckets on the floor. And we got Rodman on the wall here smoking a cigar, and he was one of our regulars here too. So, there's a lot of, really cool photos in here. And, we'd like to preserve history if we can.
Yeah, and I used to do some work in here as well, and it's completely different. It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, when I moved out, you moved in.
Yeah.
You were here for how long?
I think a couple of years at least. Time flew. I don't know, but people thought it was pretty darn cool. They would love to come to have meetings with me.
Yep.
They thought it was pretty damn cool.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. Is there anything that you like obsess about in terms of design or feel? I know that there's sometimes where you're going out and about, maybe in different cities, and then you see something and use it as inspiration, or you're getting stuff from like antique places. I mean, I know I helped out, and Dory Deli put up some sort of scuba, very heavy scuba thing. Yeah. Is there anything that like you're like, okay, you keep thinking about it?
Well, and anytime we come across something that we feel is like unique or fun or even weird, like we like to buy it. When we opened up the Wild Goose, I was in New York about 5 years before that, and I literally came across a 6 foot wide old trough sink, cast iron, probably weighs about 300 pounds, and I had that shipped out to Newport, sat in storage for 5 years until I needed it. I'm like, I don't know what I need this for, but I just know one day I'm going to need it. And we do that with artwork. We do that with architectural pieces, and I have a warehouse full of stuff that I don't know what I'm going to need it for. I just know one day I'm going to need it. And we just did the patio expansion at Malarkey's, and we have a bunch of really cool artifacts on the wall there. And we took over the ownership of the beach ball in December of 2023, and we were able to put some cool pieces up on the wall and kind of make it a little more fun. Still keeping the culture of the business. Put in a new draft system, new walk-in coolers. I'm really big on new bathrooms. Every venue that we own, I feel like the women need really nice restrooms, because if there's a lot of women, the men are going to follow. So pretty simple model.
Yeah.
And so every place that we've acquired, we've redone the bathrooms, and you kind of just did the infrastructure and kind of left it alone.
Now, what's the difference between Orange County, compared to LA or San Diego? Do you see the different, I don't know, vibes or, patrons or?
I think Orange County is better than LA or San Diego. Newport Beach has a core culture. Costa Mesa's got a core culture. Whether it's we're in Fullerton, Orange, Costa Mesa, Newport, every one of them has like their own identity and has a really strong sense of community that I don't know if Los Angeles really has that. You come to Newport Beach and you walk around, you can be a complete stranger. You stay here for a few weeks, you're going to make a lot of friends. It's an old school beach town where people are very welcoming, and it just feels like home. My father passed away last year at 87, and he left Orange and moved to Newport Beach about 20 years ago, and lived in Orange for many years. And he told me his biggest mistake in life was not moving to Newport sooner. The culture, the people here really welcomed him in, and he just absolutely loved it here.
Now, speaking of cities, is there any fights that you have or push and pull things with respect to what you're trying to do in your concepts?
The cities who are a little more well-run, and the cities that are more business-friendly, we obviously want to focus on, doing more in those cities. There's a couple of cities that we work in who are very disorganized. It makes it unpleasant to want to do a project there, because they're going to do a bad job with your paperwork. It's going to take extra long. They've got ulterior motives on how they want to treat you. And I'm not going to say which cities those are, but we've specifically stayed away from certain cities because of the way we've seen them operate. And I guess that goes back to who you elect matters on the city side, because it's like not political, because they're the nonpartisan seats. It's not Republican or Democrat. It's who's going to be the best person for the community. And if you elect the wrong people, the residents are going to feel the price. They're going to feel the pain.
Did you notice any politically appointed people, city council or anything, kind of sway because maybe other businesses were in their city as well? Is there kind of that kind of weird thing going on?
So what do you mean?
Like maybe there was a restaurant or bar that somebody else owns in a particular city, and they have ins with the city government. Would they, and then maybe any sort of like barriers to you opening up because you'd be competition?
Yeah, that does happen.
Yeah.
Certain cities, they might have relationships where, they might be a little bit more selective, and that's not legal actually, but they might be more selective in how they treat you, like they're not supposed to. We haven't had too much of that. Never had that in Newport Beach, never had that in Costa Mesa. We have had that in other cities.
Now, how critical is like community goodwill? And I know you do it. So when you get into a community, are you super involved? I know there's a lot of things that you've done I've seen online. Is that crucial to your business?
I think it's our duty. It's our duty to get back to the community and, help build that, relationship with the community and, strengthen the culture of the community. And, the interesting thing about a neighborhood tavern or pub is, that's a place where people go to celebrate. It's a place where people go to mourn. When Ben Carlson passed away, the lifeguard hero of Newport Beach, Malarkey's was kind of like the meeting place for all the lifeguards. They all came together, and it really is important to give back, not just because it's good business, but because it's good for society. And our mission statement as a company is to leave things better than we found it for the next generation. Because at some point, I'm just a custodian. I'm managing it while I'm around. I'm going to hand it down to somebody else later. So that's why we focus on infrastructure. That's why we fix the things that other operators and owners didn't want to do, because it's not easy. It's money that you spend that you don't see an immediate return on. But we do the infrastructure for the businesses, and we want to strengthen the culture. So when it goes down to my children or grandchildren, hopefully they're going to keep that same mission statement going forward. There's one common denominator that we've seen at almost every single establishment that we purchased is we acquired them from somebody who dilapidated them and didn't want to reinvest in them.
And, you can have the best concept in the world, but when it comes to like staffing, it can kill it. How do you build that loyalty? And I'm sure, everybody's dealt with it who owns a business and has employees. How do you deal with that?
Well, you got to treat your employees well. It's our job to make sure that customers are coming in and spending money, so the employees are able to make money on gratuity. And we want very long retention, because long retention is good business. Customers want to go to an establishment and recognize the bartender and know the server and create a relationship with them. At Malarkey's Irish Pub, we've had many of the same employees here, some since the 1980s, some since the 90s, some since the 2000s. We have a probably one of the longest retention rates of employees in the entire industry. And the unfortunate thing is the new generation, they don't have the same work ethic. And it's a whole nother world now with people that think they came to work for us for 6 months and we owe them something, where, it's just interesting.
Yeah, it sounds like you'll have a battle of both those, because you've got some people that I've known over the years that have been in this industry for quite some time that are just hardcore, and then the people that, I deserve everything. And you just saw the grinders versus takers.
The new generation is interesting because I think earlier I mentioned I left the Bay Area and I moved back home to live with my parents for a little bit while I was saving money and working nonstop. And the new generation, they enjoy living at home because they don't need to pay on rent, and mom and dad take care of them. And in the old days, we used to debate with our bartenders because I wanted to staff more employees behind the bar to be more efficient, to get better customer service. But the bartenders wanted fewer employees, and they were willing to work harder, but they wanted to split the tips fewer ways. Mm-hmm. These days, the bartenders don't care if we overstaff because they'd rather work, not everyone, but the newer generation would rather work less hard and make less money and live at home with their parents. So, the environment's changed a little bit on the workforce side. I think everyone's seen it. They talk about it all the time on the news and the behavior patterns. I mean, in the old days, I said the old days because you and I are old, right? The olden days. I was born in the 1900s. My daughter reminds me of that all the time. She goes, "Dad, you're old. You were born in the 1900s." Well, I'm like most of the people were born in the 1900s.
A little later than 1900s. Yeah.
Well, 1970s. She's like, "Dad, 1900s, previous century." Mm-hmm. But anyway, our generation, the generation before the current ones, if you wanted to meet people, you left the house. You didn't socialize on your phones. If you wanted to find a girlfriend, you probably went to a cafe or a bar. Or you went out. If you wanted to order food, you went out to eat. And takeout food was typically pizza or low quality Chinese food or something, right? And then now if you want to meet someone, you go on your cell phone and you swipe left a few times until someone accepts you, or you want to order pretty decent food, you can order it on DoorDash. So we are seeing a behavior shift in the way people spend money, and we're seeing a behavior shift in the way people work.
Now, you made me think of the pandemic. I know you were helping out the community and stuff like that. How did your establishments fare? Because you didn't close. How did that all work out for you?
Well, we unclosed. It was March 17th, 2020. I know the date because it was St. Patrick's Day, the biggest bar day of the year, and the governor decreed that everything has to close that day. And they told us we had to close we had to close that day for a total of approximately 2 weeks. That's how they get you, right? They give you a realistic time frame. And 2 weeks at that time seemed like an eternity. So based on the information we were given, we kept all of our managers on salary, everybody, even though we were closed. We fed all of our employees every single day. We were continuing to buy food. And then after the 2 weeks passed, they said, now you're closed indefinitely without any idea of when we're going to be able to reopen. So then we had to make some serious decisions. We're still paying rent at the time. We're paying our mortgages. We were paying our managers. Then we had to start to furlough because it's not sustainable. We'd already depleted all of our savings. And then we had to start laying people off and furloughing. And the good thing is, unemployment kicked in, so the employees were okay. That was the most important part. But we realized that we had to keep all of our managers working because when the time came to reopen, we couldn't reopen without them. So we did the best we could to navigate the situation at that time.
And what I meant by close, you did nothing. You kept your places. Nothing, like you said, you continued to pay, continued to feed your employees, and nothing went bankrupt. Your places survived it, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, we started COVID on the closure date. We had 11 locations, and within 1 year we had 14. We opened 3 more during COVID.
Good.
So when people were just fed up with the hospitality industry, my partner and I bought additional locations.
What's the reality of lawsuit culture and hospitality?
It's unfortunate that California is very litigious. It's just the nature of doing business in California in the state. But the lawsuits are typically set up for employers to fail. Like there's a thing called the PAGA lawsuit. The PAGA lawsuit is a labor lawsuit where the state of California created the rules for employees to sue their employers, and the actual state of California gets a commission of every settlement. So they get the state benefits from employees suing tax-paying employers, and they incentivize it. So it's a tough state to do business in. That's just the reality of it. And, minimum wage is high, taxes are high, lawsuits are high, and you just need to be more resilient. You got to operate smarter. You got to operate more efficiently. And, we've seen it in the state with rising prices. Things in California are very expensive. Housing, right? Going out to eat's more expensive. It's a direct relation to we have the most expensive gas in the country.
Yeah.
We have the most expensive labor in the country. So, I mean, it's the, rules in place are creating the environment that we live in.
Have you ever had a night so bad that you thought about maybe throwing in the towel?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always that certain day where you say, you know what? Things are just way harder than they need to be. The amount of red tape and paperwork that we manage today versus about 15 years ago, it's unnatural. We used to be you manage your employees efficiently. You have your accounts payable, your accounts receivable, and then you give your customers a great experience. Now it's like the managing of all the laws and the overregulation and the amount of time that we spend on that. It's it just eats right into the bottom line, and once again, it increases your overhead.
Well, how about we keep the old school bartenders and then maybe have those Optimus robots replace the people that don't want to work, or is that?
It's already happening.
Yeah.
It's already happening. I mean, you're hearing about these robots that are very realistic, and they're with AI and everything happening. It's you see restaurants now. I was at a bad example, but an example. I mean, I was at a McDonald's and at a train station in I think I was in Florence, and there was like the counter with all the terminals. Like nobody's at the terminals. No, like it looked like they were closed, and everyone's ordering from kiosks, and there's a robotic arm dropping food down on the counter. I mean, it's happening here. It's happening all over the world.
Yeah.
And when I mentioned Florence, it said as a bad example because I don't think their overhead's as high as ours is. So if they're incentivized to do it there, imagine what the incentive is to do it here.
Yeah.
And who knows what's going to happen to the hospitality industry in the future with labor and consistency and AI. Who knows what's going to be socially acceptable?
Yeah. I went to the Tesla diner. They have the Optimus handing out popcorn occasionally throughout the week, and that may be the future. It was very nice.
The Taco Bell up the street where you walk in there, you order from the tablet, and all the employees are in the back.
Yeah.
It's like already happening down the street from us.
Are there any crazy like security or kind of PI, situations that you've had to deal with, step into? I mean, you're probably putting out fires left and right.
You just deal with managing people, and personalities are going to be out there where somebody does something inappropriate and you need to address it. As far as PI services, sometimes you get a customer who says some weird things, and you got to call a PI and kind of investigate, is this guy dangerous? Like, what's going on? It might be an employee that we want to terminate, and we want to do a little background on that employee to figure out, like, hey, let's make sure we're doing the right thing here.
Yeah.
Mental stability is a reality. So you deal with, the situation that we're in.
How did you scale? What was that strategy? I mean, when you started getting that, the wheels were turning, obviously you got a business partner. How far into it did he come on board?
Well, we built all the businesses with internal cash flows, right? So we scaled through, like I said, one restaurant at a year. And we would, we were conservative. We saved our money. We didn't live, extravagant lifestyles. And we take our savings and open up a new one. Then we take our savings and open up another one. Remember, as we're opening up additional locations and taking on additional employee count, we had to build our infrastructure on the office side as well. And then we're bringing in an HR team. We're bringing in a larger accounting team. We're bringing in a CFO. We brought in a marketing team. Then we have regional managers. So it wasn't just, hey, we went from 4 to 5 and 5 to 10. There's a certain amount of fixed cost that goes right on top of all that helps you manage it.
Now, because people always talk about how restaurants and bars are just a bad investment. Clearly, that's not the case with you. What are the kind of the silent killers for those people that aren't doing the things the way you are doing them?
I would say your number one liability in California is going to be labor. If you don't manage your labor correctly, a frivolous lawsuit or a legitimate lawsuit, either one. The frivolous ones are the worst because you still need to fight them. But either way, litigation in California is going to be your biggest threat to any employer in California.
Mm-hmm. When you go into, actually, I'm going to say that for the end because I got a little rapid fire. What's the next frontier for the lounge group? Are you guys going to keep going? You said, we're no spring chickens. What are you going to do next?
Yeah, we're going to maintain what we have and just continue to manage it. We don't have any growth strategies in the near future. There's a couple of, potential businesses that we would consider acquiring no time soon, but they're on my wife's approved list. My wife wants me to work less and spend more time with her and the kids. But we are not looking to grow anytime soon. But if certain opportunities came up, we're only going to invest in home run deals.
Now, when you look at this industry versus you said you got into real estate, how do you compare those? And then are you like in the real estate more because there's less headaches? Or, you're getting headaches with construction, I would imagine.
Well, you get headaches in real estate. Also, like before the podcast started, I was on the phone with my property manager, and we have a tenant who just filed bankruptcy, and he owns a restaurant. And so we're dealing with him not paying rent, and he owes us for the last six months rent, and you're kind of handcuffed until the process is completed. Real estate's not as consistent and easy as everyone claims it is. People think you own a property and it's mailbox money. I haven't seen that yet. We're actively involved in all of our real estate. We actively manage it. I actively have a maintenance team that repairs it. I do all my own leases. I do all my own property inspections. So, I like real estate because it's a long-term equity appreciation play. I like restaurants and bars because it's a larger cash flow play, and we have one that complements the other.
And you mentioned active. I don't think people know. I think sometimes they think business owners are just going to sit back and they're not involved. You're probably one of the most involved entrepreneurs I've ever met, and it would be interesting just to see a day in the life because like you said, phone calls, text, and you're running around, and it's a lot. I think people don't realize that it's still probably it's not the 18-hour days, but maybe at least 12, if not more.
Yeah, I say we work smarter, not harder, because I'm older. It's the nature of getting older. And the funny saying is youth is wasted on the young. We see these people who are younger and have all this energy, and they're able to just do those 18-hour days. And then as you learn over time, you lose the physical energy, but then you have the knowledge you acquired over time to be efficient with your time and somebody else's energy. So that's the nature of, institutional knowledge over time, is hiring the right people and giving them the right direction on how to manage. And that old saying, trust but verify. You trust them to do their job, but you got to go out there and verify that they actually did their job.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're constantly going, and what you've created is amazing. Speaking of that, how do you want your kids to remember your grind?
Well, my kids saw a lot of it. My daughters are 13 and 16, so they've seen me work quite a bit, and they've seen a lot of the new concepts open throughout their lifetime. I take them to work with me, and I have really cute pictures of them with hard hats on, on the way to school, I'd detour off and go by the country club project. And I wanted them to see the, jackhammers there and people building things. I want them to see what it's like to be, boots on the ground. And I want my kids to remember that if you work hard, you can have a very strong, possibility of being successful. If you're willing to put the hours in, you're most likely going to make it. Really concerned about, technology in general with children, just kind of, identifying what's real and what's not and what's achievable and what isn't. And my wife and I, we talk to them quite a bit, but work hard, be consistent, live within your means. And, that's what I want their father's work legacy to be. And as far as my philanthropic, investment in the community, they see quite a bit of that as well. As we want them to remember, you got to always create a strong partnership with the community and always try and better the area around you, because a rising tide will raise all ships. You create friends, you build relationships, and everyone prospers together.
Yeah, because when you look at your parents' journey and then your journey, perhaps they're going to be breaking concrete at 11 o'clock at night, maybe not, but it's one of those things that it trickles down, and they've had it good, but it's hard to instill that work ethic that your mom and dad had.
Yeah.
Obviously they've seen it, but is there anything that you do? I'm assuming they're in sports, and they, like you said, you take them to the work sites and things like that. Put a hard hat on them.
Yeah, we don't talk to them quite a bit. We take them to work with us when we can, and it's a different world. I didn't grow up with organized sports. I grew up going to work with my parents on the weekends, and my weekend activities were cleaning the bar in the morning. Like my activities were actually hanging out with my parents, going to work with them side by side at a very young age. I was my father's interpreter when, I was 6 years old and his English wasn't very good. And I'd go to business meetings with my dad and go, Dad, they said this, we'll tell them this.
Yeah.
I was 6 years old sitting in a room with my dad interpreting, for him. And, my kids are going to sports. They're going to water polo. They're going to volleyball. They're going with my wife to charity events with mother-daughter charity leagues. And, they're seeing a different side of society than I saw, where I saw just grit. I saw hard work and grit, and that made me who I am. And my kids see a lot of grit in me, but I don't know if they're seeing the grit firsthand.
Yeah.
So it's my goal in life to just make sure they're productive members of society and they work hard.
Yeah. You're doing well, man. It's amazing. So I've got these rapid fire. You can pass on it. We can skip it. But worst bar name you've ever heard?
Oh, geez, worst bar name. I had a buddy of mine who called me up and wanted to help me concept the District Lounge. And his idea for the bar name was DUI. And it was Daily Urban Intake. And I thought it was the stupidest name I've ever heard of in my life. And his name is Jimmy Panahall. So if you're watching this, that was the worst bar name ever.
We'll send it to him. Liquor you refuse to order?
Hypnotic.
In Orange County, Newport or Costa Mesa?
Regarding what?
Scene, clientele.
Listen, the clientele is great in both locations.
Yeah.
You want to look at the water or not look at the water?
Yeah.
If I had to choose, I'd be at Newport Beach because I enjoy looking at the water every day.
Most overrated cocktail?
Most overrated, probably a vodka soda.
Yelp, necessary evil or trash?
Trash.
Best night of the week to print money?
Saturday.
Better vibe, dive bar or rooftop?
Dive bar.
First person you hire?
First person I hire? Like at a restaurant?
You manage.
You got to be a manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lease or GM? Lease or own?
Owned.
Who's scarier, the health department or the ABC?
Probably the health department.
When you walk into a bar, what's the first thing you look at?
I look at ambiance, lighting and ambiance.
What's your biggest hospitality pet peeve?
Empty glasses on the table. Oh, actually, no, probably a wobbly table. Can't stand a table of wobbles.
Should a 20% tip still be given if service is bad?
Well, you know what? I give 20% when it's bad. I just don't come back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll give 20 and not come back, but depends on the person. If you live on a budget, probably not.
How do chefs really feel when the food is sent back? Is it usually the customer's fault?
Probably 50-50.
Well, you've answered this, but any type of server shouldn't be tipped if you have a rude, mean, insulting, or you just across the board, regardless of what they do?
If I have a bad experience and everything was like it was just unpleasant, I'll still tip. If there's an employee who's just absolutely just rude and a bad person, then I'll give 0.
Yeah. You ever watch those Gordon Ramsay shows or the Bar Rescue or anything like that?
Yeah.
And do you think that's real or staged, or?
It's about probably 70% staged, 30% real.
There's one right now. He goes in behind with like blue lights and stuff like that, and that probably scares the crap out of people that go out to eat.
Well, they had one. It was called Hell's Kitchen.
That, and then there's one where he's going like undercover.
Yeah.
And then you see the fights with the staff and stuff like that.
Yeah, a lot of that stage with Bar Rescue and with the Taproot, but my friend was on Bar Rescue and they were trying to, like my buddy Jim, and he's such a nice guy, and they kept trying to get him to be confrontational.
Yeah.
That's such a nice guy, they couldn't do it.
Yeah, they need that.
But they're definitely trying to stage it.
Can you walk into a place and instantly know it's doomed?
Yeah.
Do online reviews actually help or create noise?
It's real, and it's going to help a lot or hurt a lot.
All right, thanks, Mario. I really appreciate it. I loved hearing about your family story, your story, talking about all your establishments. It's been amazing.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And you got to remember, support your local restaurants, bars, everybody that's hands-on, that's in the community, support them.